Hi Six, hope you're okay. Welcome to your fourth reading lesson of the week, and this one builds on the one you did yesterday, all based on The Wolf Wilder by Catherine Rundell, who I've spoken to a few of you about through this week. Catherine Rundell, who's the author of Explorer, which is a really famous book and really good book to read, and also the extract we looked at on Monday, which was Rooftoppers, which is another really good book. So she's an author you've got to try and read some of her books. She's really good. Yesterday I read through the extract of chapter 1, and what I'd like you to do today to start off with as we're doing a lesson is just read back through that chapter again to yourself, just do an independent reread. I suggest you do that now and just pause the video. Okay, so hopefully you've read back through that extract, and now what I want you to do is just quickly to yourself, as we're doing a lesson, just briefly summarise in your head what you think the 5 key points are. So who are the characters, what happens roughly, just very quickly and briefly, what is this chapter all about? Okay, I'll give you a chance to pause the video again now, and then I'll go through roughly what I think the 5 key points are from my side. Okay, so the characters, we've got Theodora, the little girl, and we've got Theodora's mother, whose name is yet unknown, who's just referred to as Theodora's mother, and they both live in the forest in the woods in Russia. And we've got some other characters. We've got General Rakov, who does not appear to be a very pleasant man, and his 2 sidekicks, whose names I don't think we know yet. What happens? Well, basically, we've got something to do with, it's all based around wolves that Theodora's mother looks after, and General Rakov, he's trying to claim that Theodora's wolves, or Theodora's mother's wolves, have killed an elk, and he's trying to claim some money for that, isn't he? So I don't want to say too much about that at this stage, because the task today involves sequencing and summarising a passage you have read. So you'll have seen this before, because one, it comes up in comprehension tests quite a lot, but also we did it last week on, I think, on Can You See Me, the first chapter, where we tried to sequence it from start to finish. So the icon says I can sequence and summarise a passage I've read. It says below are some summaries of different paragraphs from this text. Number them 1 to 9 to show the order in which they happen. Be careful, think about when things happen. And there's a series of statements there, and you need to order them in the events, in the time in which they occur. So the first one says Rakov's man searched Theo's bedroom to see if there's anything of value they could take as compensation. The second one says someone knocks on the snow blue door. The third one says Rakov claims that wolves are vermin with teeth, and Theodora's mother disagrees. Now these are completely jumbled up, okay? So you have to think about the order of events from start to finish. Okay, what is the first thing that happens, and what is the final thing that happens? Okay. Once you've done that, you can have a go at doing the stretch exercise. So what I would do, in order to do that, by the way, if you can print off the sheet, you can just number it 1 to 9 on the side. Or if you haven't got an option to print out, just get a piece of paper and write them down, the sentences in the order that you think they come. Okay, so that's sequencing it through in order. Now the stretch activity is something we had a go at last week in my class, where you try to summarise the passage just using only 5 or 6 words each time. So going through in order from what happens, using the sequence that you've figured out from the top, try and order it from start to finish, only using 5 or 6 words for each sentence. For example, an elk is killed by wolves, number 1. Rakov goes to Theodora's house, number 2. And then you carry on. It's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 is the first sentence. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 words is the second sentence. You cannot use 4 words, you cannot use 3 words, you cannot use 7 words. And just try and briefly summarise that passage from start to finish. And my final question, once you've done all that, is just have a think to yourself, maybe note down, does this story appeal to you? And maybe have a little prediction. What do you think that might happen in this story? What do you think might happen next? Okay. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to go through the answers to the sequencing. So I suggest if you do not want to know those answers, stop the video now, pause it now and then perhaps come back later and have a look, put the video on once you've had a go, because I'm going to go through the answers. All right, so pause your video. Okay, hopefully you've paused your video and stopped, because now I'm going to go through what the correct order was. So the first thing that happens, not necessarily in the text, this might throw some of you at the start, the first thing that happens in terms of time is an elk has been killed by a group of wolves. That's not the first thing that happens in the chapter, though. The first thing that happens in the chapter is someone knocks on the snow blue door. But in terms of time, what happens before that, an elk was actually killed by a group of wolves. Okay, and that might have tricked you at the start there. Okay, but well done if you got that. The second thing that happens is then someone knocks on the snow blue door. Then Theo races through the house to answer the door. After that, Rakov and his men barge into the house. Then what Rakov does is he shows the dead elk to Theodora and her mother. Then Rakov explains that he's come to claim compensation money for the dead elk. Then what happens is Rakov's men search Theo's bedroom to see if there's anything of value they could take as compensation. And actually before that, I think in the story, I actually think they attacked Theodora's mother as well, which sort of shows what despicable characters they are. And then Theodora's mother confronts Rakov about the fact he had dared to threaten her daughter. And then finally at the end, Rakov claims that wolves are vermin with teeth, and Theodora's mother disagrees. She says that is inaccurate. So well done if you got those in order. I think the hardest one was actually the first one, to understand that. I think Rakov explains that the elk's been killed about halfway through the chapter, but in terms of time, obviously the first thing that actually happened was the elk being killed by the group of wolves. Well done, family. Go. Hopefully you've had a go at doing the summary as well, and trying to write that in 5 or 6 words. That can be quite challenging, but by the end you should have quite a clear summary of events. And then finally, what do you think happens in the story? Does it appeal to you? I know for me it really appeals to me. I've never read this story, but reading that first chapter I really enjoyed it. What do I think might happen? I think there's clearly going to be some sort of confrontation between Theodora and the wolves and General Rakov and his men, isn't there? That's what's going to happen here, and I'd love to find out more. And I know some of you suggested it'd be a really good class reader, so I'll have to think about where we can fit that in maybe later in the year. All right, thanks guys, I'll see you later. Bye.